to carry on.
But first, in the midst of tragedy, the rush to politicize the worst shooting in American history is shameful. Now, the left has no shame, and that is tonight's very, very important live opening monologue. So in the wake of the worst mass shooting in American history, President Trump, he offered his deepest condolences, and he addressed the nation about this tragedy earlier today. And here's what he said.
Last night, a gunman opened fire on a large crowd at a country music concert in Las Vegas, Nevada. He brutally murdered more than 50 people and wounded hundreds more. It was an act of pure evil.
Now, President Trump also held a moment of silence at the White House for the victims of this Vegas shooting, and he plans to go visit the city Wednesday after traveling to Puerto Rico. That's scheduled for tomorrow. Now, while the president is trying to console the nation and offer support to the city of Las Vegas and the country, the media, Democrats, have rushed to politicize this tragedy in an absolutely despicable display. Let's take a look right there at the side of your screen. We must warn you, the images you're watching, they are heartbreaking, horrifying, lives shattered, dreams destroyed. Now, some of these victims are still in the hospital, clinging to life. We still don't have all the facts. You know what? Bodies weren't even in the morgue yet. Parents were in hospitals with their kids that are hanging on to life. None of this mattered to the left in this country. Their impulse to politicize this tragedy, as they do other tragedies, is beyond the pale. They are using this tragedy, why? To score cheap political points and push a gun control agenda. Don't believe me? Watch this.
I want to bring Commissioner Bratton back in. When you hear this, these very relaxed gun laws in the state of Nevada, how do the police protect against this?
They don't. In terms of what you just described is, in some respects, description of insanity. But that's the reality.
One more time, the description of insanity.
Terrorism, violence, how it happens elsewhere. Here, it's because of accessibility of a certain weaponry. So I'd be remiss not mentioning it now. I know it's highly political, but as a security person, this is, I'm looking at the access issue and looking at these numbers and absolutely shocked and outraged that for some reason we're not allowed to talk about that.
This is going to reopen the debate over guns in this country.
Well, it is, but I think it's really important to make sure we do it accurately.
I think this is time for a national dialogue that we can have in a calm and reasoned way in which the country can figure out how come we have so many mass shootings in this country. We can't have that conversation because it immediately becomes so emotional between the gun owners of America who are protected by the NRA and other people who are saying there ought to be a more reasonable middle ground.
Now, this isn't bad enough. Look at some of the tweets. Look at these statements coming from Democrats calling again for gun control just within hours after the massacre happened. This is so shameful. Elizabeth Warren, thoughts and prayers, they're not enough. Not when moms and dads will bury kids this week and more sons and daughters will grow up without parents. Nancy Pelosi, she's out there calling on Speaker Paul Ryan to create a select committee to examine gun violence in America. Hillary Clinton, she took things further, going after the NRA. Here's what she tweeted, quote, "Our grief isn't enough. We can and must put politics aside and stand up to the NRA and work together to try and stop all of this from happening again." Beyond disgusting, inappropriate, and pathetic. Now, Clinton weighed in less than 9 hours after the shooting and went deep into the gutter of politics she says she doesn't want to play. Here's my question. Do they have any decency? Any thoughts about the families? We don't know the details yet, but this is their initial impulse. Keep watching the images on the side of your screen tonight. Has anyone on the left criticized Hillary or other Democrats for making this point? I don't see it. Imagine if the president today brought up the Second Amendment. How would the news media in this country have reacted? We don't know the motivation of this lunatic. We know it's premeditated. We know it's evil. I can make 100 different arguments. If it wasn't a gun, it would be a car or a bomb or whatever. The only thing the Democrats should be focused on tonight, the country needs to be focused on, the victims that are in the hospital, their families, and the investigation, because we don't have facts. But instead, they couldn't even wait a half a day to play politics. Shameful. And members of the media, they're also going directly after the victims. Liberal CNN, Jeff Zeleny suggested the only reason he's going to Vegas is because the victims in the audience may have been his supporters. Really? That's pretty twisted and very sick. Watch.
Of course, Las Vegas is a town that he is connected to and knows well. His name is emblazoned on the top of a hotel there as well. He campaigned there a lot. So this is something that I'm not surprised at all to see him go there visiting early. Something else I think to keep in mind, a lot of these country music supporters were likely Trump supporters. And this is something that, of course, is hitting the tapestry of all Americans. And there are going to be victims from across the country here.
And sadly, it gets even worse. A top lawyer for CBS was fired earlier today after writing on Facebook. Listen to this, quote, "If they wouldn't do anything when children were murdered, I have no hope that Republicans will ever do the right thing. I'm actually, listen to this, not even sympathetic, because country music fans are often Republican gun toters." Wow. This has nothing to do about which party you support. Those were Americans that were shot. Those are Americans fighting for their lives. These tragedies happened under Democratic presidents, too. You don't believe me? Look at the mass shootings where 8 or more died under President Bill Clinton, including Columbine High School. And here's all the mass shootings using the same metrics that happened under President Obama, if you're so desperate to play politics. You also have the Washington Navy Yard and Sandy Hook, also the shooting at Fort Hood. These were all tragedies. The people that carry out these acts are despicable, deranged, and evil. You know what? The right didn't do what Bill Clinton did after the Oklahoma City bombing and blame talk radio and fertilizer. And guess what? We didn't blame Barack Obama for tragedies that happened on his watch. My main criticism was him not identifying radical Islamic terrorism when it was so obvious and true. Exploiting the shooting is pathetic. It's the most pathetic thing the Democrats and the media is doing right now. Yet every single time something like this takes place, they rush to judgment without facts, immediately calling for stricter gun control. The lack of sympathy for the families that the media won't show and the left isn't showing speaks volumes. And it's not surprising. If you watch TV all weekend, they're doing the exact same thing.